Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson here today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here,
No,
Kevin.
Tim, the least of many evils
The
O'Connor. Excuse
of
me,
course,
sir.
who wouldn't want to be like we have so many evils, we need to pick the least of many evils, and I just want people to know that's a real possibility in this day and age. You don't have to pick the lesser of two evils. You can pick the least of many evils, and I think that's important for people to know.
That's right. Got options.
Yeah,
Some less evil than others. You might as well go with the least of many.
See, that makes sense to me.
So, all right. And speaking of which, we are going to talk about the vice presidential debate.
Oh boy,
that happened yesterday. So I mean, we'll it was okay, right? Like, but we'll dig into some of the policy, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Hey, if I'm going with vibes, and I'll talk about it during the show, man, there was a clear and present winner by a landslide in the vibe war.
In the vibe war. All right.
In the vibe war.
Tim's gonna reveal the winner of the vibe war when we go into the radio show.
Yeah.
But we're also gonna talk about solar panels related to the debate. We're gonna talk about the dock worker strike.
I love those guys, man. I love them. I can't wait. I have a feeling you could predict what I'm gonna say, but it's got to be said again because it will reach people. Libertarians need to talk about this technological plateau that they buggy whip manufacturers are trying to keep us on. We've got to have that conversation. I think it's sellable, Kevin. I think the world will buy it if we frame it correctly and repeatedly.
Yeah. I mean, that's their goal. So talk about that. Maybe we'll get into the Eric Adams and, a couple other things as well.
Yeah. We need an update on that guy.
Yeah. Of course, we all want an update on that guy. We're all on the edge of our seat here. And so, and of course, folks listening, folks watching, if you have any other ideas and you're watching the live stream here on Wednesday evening, put them in the comments. We're happy to talk about them. If you got good stuff, we'll bring it up on the show as we often do. So on that note, though, let's go live in just a couple of seconds. Let's see. 4, 3, 2.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson here today, joined by Tim, the least of many evils, O'Connor.
I'm here, brother, and I'm going to do something that I haven't ever really done before, but I want to dedicate this show. Our community, my community here in the Oneonta, Otsego area, we lost a great guy this past weekend. Saturday night, we were hanging out celebrating his nephew's 21st birthday. We had just a wonderful evening, and people who know my friend Sean Thayer know that our community has lost a hero, a champion, one of the nicest guys in the world. The guy that, like, if the apocalypse comes, we were going to be able to count on him for space and ideas and just community there where we could gather, get together, do fun things. We were hanging at his house during the COVID lockdowns, just like we always did. As a matter of fact, I think there were more people there hanging out. Fellow wrestling dad, me and him took our boys all over the country to just put them on the mats and have them wrestle against the best kids we could find for them. And so truly my heart is hurting. My wife's heart is hurting. My friends' hearts are hurting. Sean was a great guy and he's going to be missed, Kevin. So I want to dedicate this show to my buddy Sean there.
Yeah. Again, sorry for your loss. That's awful. Sounds like he was a great guy. And
he was, man. He really was.
Yeah. So
and he liked my politics. He wasn't quite ready to go full libertarian, but he helped me, Kevin. He helped me with one
Yeah,
of the guys. Yeah, he would walk me around and introduce me to people and be like, "Hey, sign this guy's petition." When I was getting out collecting signatures for Larry Sharp, like people that I didn't know that well, people that I knew were kind of radical conservatives, but he'd just walk right up to him and be like, "Timmy wants you to sign this. I'll sign it." You know what I mean? And he just had that affable trait. You know, he
yeah,
wasn't a big, intimidating dude. He was just a friendly, fun-loving guy, and like it, just an awesome guy. Awesome.
yeah. Sounds like he was a good friend, and again, that stinks. That to lose a good friend like that, who's someone who's going to help you out in that situation. Just like, you know, whatever. Let me
Yeah,
talk to people, start conversations, and help you start conversations. It's great.
yeah, yeah. He wonderful like that. Wonderful. And he'll appreciate our breaking down. Like if he's up there in heaven watching us tonight, he'll appreciate our takedown of the vice presidential debates. That where we're going to start with.
Yeah, that's what we're going to start with. Vice presidential debate. JD Vance, Coach Walls.
Yeah, Coach
Man,
Walls. Man, I'm telling you right now, Kevin, I want to be honest. The vibe of the vibe contest, the who has more Riz, who's got
that's
more
more
present,
Riz.
who has
What
more.
age are you, Tim? You're spending too much time on Twitter
I'm
or
telling
TikTok,
you,
maybe. I don't know.
maybe. I don't know either, but I'm just saying who has more Riz, who's able to answer, like to talk for 2 minutes and then remember he has a question to answer. Like honestly, there was only one guy on that stage that could do it,
Who has more Riz? Who was
Who
it?
has more Riz? And guys, it's official. JD Vance has more Riz than Coach Tim Walz. And
Wow,
honestly,
bold statement.
I was a little surprised because I, occasionally the coach looks like he's got Riz. Occasionally he issues some like some good sentences together that are impactful. But JD Vance took him down, man. I, at least in the Riz department.
At least in the Riz, and really, this election is all about the Riz, isn't it?
So
Like that's what
it
we
is.
like. We really care about.
Yeah, yeah. So
I'm going to quote you on that on Twitter.
do it, man. Do it. That's perfect. Yeah, so look, it was an interesting debate. And I the basic premises for about the first hour, I'm relatively engaged. And then after that, it's like, all right, they're getting to really interesting subjects, but you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna fall asleep because that's what works for me. And look, I feel bad in a way because I'm such a political junkie that I want to be able to have informative conversations. But
Bro,
the
you got to
problem,
work for this podcast, man. You gotta stay awake. It's dedication.
well, okay. Look, I'm going to be honest. Like, eh, I did the work. I listened to it. It was a literal bloodbath on JD Vance's favor as far as again when we're talking about the risk. Now, some of the back and forth answers, I'm not sure that they're asking the right questions. As a libertarian, I want them to be talking about economic policies that are going to like benefit the future. I want
Well,
someone to be like, I'm anti-war, I'm anti-war, I'm
yeah,
anti-war. That's what
definitely
I
don't get
want.
that.
I
That
never get
started
that.
out with pretty aggressively pro-war on,
Yeah,
at least on like the Israeli side, right? Like that's
sure.
st-
Iran's gonna have a nuclear bomb in 72 hours. Like that
yeah,
that was the
any
first
day now.
question.
We've been
Yeah.
saying that since 2002, but yeah.
I
All
think
right,
maybe even longer. I don't know. I feel like that's something I remember from my childhood,
that's
like
fair.
going way back.
That's fair. It's been a minute. At least since like the Shah fell, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like, so there were like a handful of like, questions I liked from a libertarian perspective. Like, not that they answered them well, but like they asked about like, hey, your economic policy is going to add, like $1 trillion to the debt, according to like these economists. Tim Walz, what do you think of that? And
Yeah.
then he's just off on like whatever tangent he's off on, right? Like not at all addressing the debt. And then JD Vance, same thing. Like Donald Trump's tax policy in terms of tariffs is likely to increase the debt by this much money. What do you think of that? And he's off on like whatever other tangent he's off on. Not at all addressing the question of debt, just talking about what they're gonna give you and all the free stuff you're gonna get and all the ways that like their policies are gonna make things better, except for the fact that they have no method to actually pay for it, right? Hey,
Correct. There's never any way to pay for it other than exploding the debt. Exploding it.
yep. And you get things like some specific issues, right? Like the child care plan that JD Vance has, right? Like there's a lot of big promises to do stuff, and he's an economic populist. So he's like, all right, how are we going to pay for this? Well, that because what they're doing is they're like, oh, Donald Trump. I forget how they phrased the question. They phrased it in a pretty disingenuous way, but basically said that the Donald Trump point was that he was going to pay for that. Oh, I remember what it was, that the child care isn't that expensive because they're going to be able to use the tariff to pay for it, which is a dumb thing for Donald Trump to say. And then JD Vance is like, you know what, the tariff is going to pay for it. We're going to pay for child care subsidies. We're going to make it easier for people to have more kids because we're going to take the tariff money that we have and we're going to use that to pay for child care for people so people can have more children. I'm like,
Okay.
where's the money? We are not going to raise enough money for that just by tariffs. Like it's not how it's going to work. It's not how it's ever going to work. Like JD Vance needs to get a grip on this stuff. And he's, again, a big economic populist. When they brought up the stuff about him criticizing Donald Trump, that's basically what he says. Like, yeah, Donald Trump wasn't a big enough economic populist. I wish he was, the implied text, I wish he was less free market and more big government, like intervening in the economy. Like, because that's what he wants. Like the party of like free markets and the Republicans is dead. Sorry. It's not there anymore. And
then we have nothing. Do you know what I mean? It's like the other party is arguably even worse on those issues than the lip service that the Republicans pay.
Look, I know this is going to be sacrilegious.
Not really.
I think Trump is actually worse than Kamala Harris on the economic stuff, like slightly worse.
Okay.
Because there's,
I don't know how you get there, but that's all right. Like,
so I get there. Yeah, I'll just like quickly justify it. Maybe we can spend like a whole other show talking about this, but I get there by saying that Donald Trump's like stuff on the economy is so ad hoc and like disconnected from economic reality. The tariff stuff, the price controls on credit card stuff, and I know you like that in a collapsitarian sense, but like it's not great economic policy.
Sure. It's not just a collapsitarian sense, though, Kevin. I want to say that the credit markets are distorted because banks are not accountable for their bad behavior, and there's this piece that we're all being overcharged by credit card companies because we have to make sure that everybody has access to credit because that is another thing that's propping up the economy. So it would be a great conversation to repeatedly have. I'd love to do an extended show about it, or an extended segment. But I think we've got more things to pull out of this
we have a few
debate,
things
right?
to talk about for the debate, right? So, and I was just gonna say, like the only reason why, just very quickly on that, is that Kamala Harris, unlike Donald Trump, is talking about specific legislation in terms of permit reform. And in terms of like building nuclear energy and in terms of like has now shifted the language away from talking about tariffs because they used to be pro tariffs, but shifted away from that. So like I'm glad that the Harris campaign is starting to talk about things like, oh, the NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act, like those permits, they're a problem. It's making it so hard to build stuff in most of the United States. It makes things cost billions more dollars. We need to do something about that. That's great. Like honestly, if she did that, it would be huge in terms of like the economic impact in a positive way. Now, I don't know if it offsets all the other terrible things that she's planning to do, but I appreciate that like she's talking at least one free market reform, whereas I hardly hear anything specific coming out of the Trump administration.
Oh yeah, no, you don't hear anything specific, but you hear, to counterpoint that, like you do hear specific promises to decrease regulation. And I would presume on some level that would mean, who knows what it actually means, but it could mean exactly what Kamala Harris is saying. That's the part about this election cycle that blows my mind. Like she offered one specific one, but then she counters it with she's going to give $50,000 grants to people that want to start a new business. I think that's a little bit of it in insanity. She wants to give $25,000 grants to people who are going to be first-time home buyers. I think that's ridiculous. Economic insanity. I think that's crazy, though.
It goes back. Now again, the Trump team is promising like similar big things, like, oh, we're gonna build big cities on federal land, like because he's promising using federal dollars to do that too. And like I don't know, man. That's not really a free market thing either. Like, I mean, in some spaces, maybe like federal land is a good spot to build, but not always. And it's weird to have that as a centrally driven project. And then like the other stuff too, like, I mean, we can get into the immigration stuff too, like the housing prices, like JD Vance spent like half the night talking about how housing prices were high because of immigrants. And that's just not really the case. Like,
Well, does high demand equate to higher prices? Arguably, I think that's the point they're trying to make. I don't like the fact that they're trading on xenophobia to make that point, but I don't think that that's necessarily an inaccurate point.
no, I mean, it isn't. It is an inaccurate point though, because like we're always going to have more people. Like Americans are being born and move around all the time too. Like the reason why housing in certain cities is going up because like there's like things like in New York or in cities like down south like Atlanta or Austin, like a lot of Americans are moving those places too. It's not increasing in population just because like immigrants are going there. It's increasing in population because Americans want to go there because there's better opportunity as well. That's why Americans immigrate to other cities within the US.
Yeah,
And so why are prices going up? People are going there, sure. But how do you solve that? You just let people build. That's the
solve
solution to it. It
solve
isn't
it
to
with mass deportation, Kevin. Don't you
Yeah, like
understand?
you're not going to solve like housing problems in Dallas by deporting all the New Yorkers who move there, right? Like,
I
and
bet some
as
people in Dallas would like that though if that
I'm
was the
sure they
policy.
I'm sure they would. You're not going to solve housing problems in Orlando or Jacksonville by deporting New Yorkers either. Like, really, that's not the solution. Like, again, I always apply this like, what if the same policy were applied to American citizens? Would it make sense? Would it be moral? Would it be good? And no, like the mass deportation thing is horrifying. It's a bad idea. It's going to be like brutal. It's going to be expensive. It's going to hurt the economy. And the actual solution to like lowering housing prices is to just let people build stuff. Like that's the solution to that.
I
Like,
agree.
you know,
100%, I agree. Like, it like, owning a little bit of property that I do, I'm intrigued by the notion that they're going to up the price of my property by 25 or $50,000. I'm intrigued by this process. Like, this could be the retirement plan that I've been waiting for. You know what I mean? Plus, I'm pretty sick of New York State, so arguably they will subsidize me moving to New Hampshire or Virginia with a $25,000 payout from the federal government. I
yeah, just
I
just a little
love
bit, little
that
bit of
idea.
extra boost.
Yeah,
You
I love
thought
that
it
idea.
was worth 200K. Just kidding. It's worth 225 now.
There you
Fantastic.
go. Jackpot, baby.
Even
I'm
better. I mean, except for the fact that you're going to lose that value in inflation, but like, let's not think about that.
Well, I still got enough energy to like build my next one. You know what I mean? So if they give me enough money, I find the right piece of land, I can go start chopping down trees and make a log cabin. You see what I'm saying? Like I could do that. And honestly, I'm willing to do that. So look, JD Vance, I also got to give him credit, Kevin. Like we can knock this guy for like bad policy, but he listens to our show. He's like, he is like, what we should do is bring more manufacturing to the United States because if you're really concerned about climate change, and I love that framing because you know that I've used it on the show before. It's like, if we're really concerned about clean environment, we should produce more in the United States because we are the most responsible, cleanest, and efficient producer in the entire world. By far, nobody even comes close. So, lower corporate tax rates, bring businesses here, we'll make more stuff. It's a
Yeah.
win-win-win.
Except for what's his plan to do that, Tim? Explain his plan to do that.
I'm
You
hey,
want to do
we're talking about Riz and vibes here, Kevin. I'm just
that. Yeah.
I'm just I'm
Sorry. Yeah. I'm
saying.
like
Plus,
ruining the Riz, but
yeah, yeah, but and the fact that he took a line from the Freedom variant. I love it. Not
yeah,
that I mean I'm claiming it's original. I probably stole it from somebody myself, but
probably. But,
regardless.
it's a
He,
tribute to other folks. But
yeah,
no. So, but his plan for doing that is to raise tariffs, right? It's to make everything, all the goods that you bring in more expensive, right? So,
sure.
okay, if you want to build a new factory in the US and you want to import some steel, you want to import some lumber, you want to import some raw materials,
Yeah,
all that is now more expensive and more difficult to
yeah.
do. Because
Well,
some of this stuff, it just doesn't make sense to produce in the US or it's not cheap to produce in the US, whatever. Like, I don't think we
yeah,
need to make everything in the US. I'm fine with trade. I think trade's a good thing.
yeah.
And if you really want to do what you said, because I kind of get that, I kind of agree, right? Like for
I know.
things like, even for things like natural gas production, right? The United States does that way better, way cleaner than places like Russia. we should be increasing our natural gas production, solar panel production, like all these manufactured goods. Like we should be making them and producing them in the US. The way to do that is to make it easier for people to build factories.
Yeah.
Why did it take so long for and so much money for like the CHIPS Act to like get even the first steps going for like building silicon chips in the United States and expanding the capacity of some of these companies to do so? It's because of regulations. It took
Yeah.
millions and millions and millions of dollars to like even start the review process. It's insane.
Sure.
Like,
And if that all of that money is included in the GDP, so it's a net positive for
well,
everyone, Kevin.
some bureaucrat and some compliance officer at a corporation are getting paid, $200,000 a year times, 30, 40 people. So yeah, that adds to the GDP. You're right. Like that is a fair criticism of GDP. Like it is stupid to spend money on that. And that's where you get situations where California high-speed rail is like excited that they created 400 jobs, but those 400 jobs are bureaucrats who do nothing but leech off the system.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. No, that's one of your fair criticisms of the GDP, and that's one of those things that drives me nuts about like, oh, look at all the money we're spending investing in green infrastructure and investing in domestic manufacturing. Like, no, you're investing in like trying to get through like an environmental permit through like
Yeah.
a heckler's veto at some like community meeting and having to spend $250,000 to do it.
So look, there was a myth that came out of the whole nobody wants Chinese solar panels, but I got some news for everybody. Like I got some really, really bad news. Like you were talking about tariffs and imports and exports and stuff like that. And there's already pretty heavily like it was really hard about 3 years ago to get solar panels for a short period of time because almost all of them are made in China, regardless of what other people are telling you. But to escape the tariffs and the trade regulations that are associated with solar panels coming out of China, all you have to do is sell them to Canada, and then Canada can wrap them in plastic and ship them down here, and they can ship them to Vietnam and then ship them to Canada, or they can ship them to like they
Yeah.
are
No, it's hilarious.
escaping. This is something that's really going on, and
Yeah.
and you've
No,
got
they're doing it
people.
with like cars and stuff too. Like
Yeah,
they'll ship them down to Mexico and then they'll send them up here and then it's like, produced in Mexico.
Ka-ching. Like it's like, but look, I want to point something out. Like that's also like an expense, an unnecessary layer of expense that is hurting every single person in this country all of the time. Any kind of tariff, there's the tariff avoidance, but that means that somebody gets paid. Okay, probably some
Right.
nepotistic kind of relationship
Yeah,
where
sure.
Hunter
But like,
Biden goes over and sets up an office in Vietnam, and they're like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna pretend that those solar panels get shipped to this office, and then we're going to ship them to Canada, and then Canada's going to sell them in the United States. And
right. And it's
every
all
step
rent
along that
seeking.
way, somebody gets a little piece of the pie, a little cut. They get
Yeah.
their beak wet, as the mafia used to say.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's something that's going on.
behavior.
It's
You're
real.
right. And and again, it has to be like cheaper than the cost of like just overcoming the tariffs, but like that's what it is. And again, we've solved nothing. All we've done is we're still destroying American jobs. Like we haven't saved any American jobs in the manufacturing industry because of the tariffs that Trump started and that Biden continued. And
Yeah.
all we're doing is making it harder for people like you and me and everyone listening to this show to go and buy stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we have government jobs, though,
worse
Kevin.
than
We could
useless.
fall back on. We could fall
Yeah.
back on government jobs. So
That's what we need. We just need more expensive jobs programs, and
yeah.
that's all we need. All right. Well, anyway, we're overdue for a break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're gonna be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. Yeah.
We got some fire comments out there. Patty Blanchard's back in the audience. Thanks, Patty. We've missed you, by the way. We were talking about you just last week. I did I don't know how much you want me to share. Her health is well. She's on the mend. She's back aboard. I have at least one news article that she gave me. She gave me a bunch, but I've got one for later on in the last segment. So, Patty, welcome back. It's good to see you.
Glad you're doing better.
Circle talk and half truths is all we get from politicians. It's true. It's true.
Let's get to this one. This is Patty says rents are high because corporations are buying up homes and making them multifamily homes and tripling rents. This is the position that Tim Walz took during the debate, right? Is he basically said, we shouldn't treat housing as a commodity. These are corporations doing that. The thing about that is rents exist in a marketplace where there are other people constantly trying to like vie for those renter dollars, right? And I know it's distorted by government, but like there are and can be functional markets. The way corporations take advantage of that is when it becomes impossible to build new housing. When no one else can build new housing, and there's only a couple of corporations in town who have who are the corporate landlords who have like a good chunk of the housing stock, and where regulations like we have in New York State make it nearly impossible for landlords to only own one or two properties. So when you get the big corporations in are able to do that, that's when you have artificially high rents. And it's just, again, it's corporations responding to the environment that the government has created. If the government creates an environment where people can build housing easily and where it's possible to be a small landlord, we won't have that problem.
Was it Jamie Dimon, the BlackRock CEO? Do I got the guy right? He's like, yeah, we definitely take advantage of like places where you can't build. We'll go in, grab a place, split it up. You're like, this is how we make our money. We're taking advantage of the inefficient markets and market distortions that government creates. It's a beautiful plan. Beautiful.
No, and that's like, and I know people want to be like, we should just stop them from doing that. Like, no, they're parasites. They're the ones who show up like when things are already rotten. Just the actual source of that problem is government policy. You fix the government policy, these parasites won't be able to make any money off of the system, and the problem goes away. That's what it is. Again, it's a symptom, not the cause.
Legacy Zach, when were Republicans ever for free markets? And look, I think a guy his age, a guy your age, like you may not have an answer to this question. You know what I mean? And even arguably, like Ronald Reagan was a guy that was arguably for free markets, certainly espoused a free market technology, certainly did a good job of making fun of proactive governance, despite all of his gun control and other nonsense that he did. And look, I've gone on record. I'll say it again. The supply side economics, cutting corporate tax rates did wonders for the economy and unfortunately grew the parasite class so like extravagantly, so rapidly that it was we didn't even know the damage that supply side economics did in growing the government because it's such a good economic philosophy. Like, sorry, that's what happened. And now they control the narrative about it. And you guys can all talk crazy, but like getting out of the way of big business, whether you let them build, lower the corporate tax rates, and it becomes easier to enforce all of the other like nuances and irregularities that government wants. So, and that's what happened, man. That was the greatest time of my life. The 90s, the late 80s, early 90s. Everybody had money. Everybody.
So the good old days. Everyone's always wishing for like the good old days when they were in in the 90s. Would you have been like your early 20s?
Yeah, early 20s.
Yeah. What everyone wishes for.
I mean, I arguably the value of the dollar and the amount of money that I made was like compared to what I'm doing now, I was like a king, bro. I was just rolling. It was a good time, man. I worked in restaurants back then.
I mean, there's some good things about the 90s. The Bill Clinton era when Democrats were more pro free market, pro free trade, lower taxes, welfare reform types at that point in time too. And then things got weird again.
Here we are. We've got two corporatists making promises to use tax money to, I don't know, not pay down the debt, not solidify the value of the dollar, to take on more debt. I caught an article from Zero Hedge right before coming on here, like the September 27th, the national debt ballooned to almost $36 trillion, $345 billion in one day because of overhanging accounts. I don't know, man. Like even as a part-time economist, it boggles my mind how their shoddy accounting was. I don't know, man. It was just awful.
At that level, you start to lose track of the numbers a bit.
It's bizarre, man.
It's too big.
We got confounding variable Marv out there. I am hugely pro-business and profit. However, corporations have amassed rights and they build assets over periods of time. It's unnatural for humans. Yeah, corporations can last for generations. They're like vampires. That's why you've never met a poor vampire ever.
I really don't have a problem with this. Again, as long as corporations are providing value, then great. If they're rent seeking, then I'm against that. But if they're providing value, and a lot of them are, then awesome. Like where like my specific criticism of like the biggest criticism of corporations is regulatory capture and things like copyright. Right?
Sure.
Look,
they effectively bought the government. We are living in a corporatocracy. People that think. No,
you're no. I'm not as much of a populist as you. Like we know this. We've talked about this. Like I'm not. Like
I don't know how we can deny that there's an aspect of the government that is completely and utterly captured by big business. That BlackRock has enough money to create a new business to take advantage of no bid contracts that they know are coming out. Like I think that there's a level of communication and conspiring that. To me, it's obvious that it exists, and so I don't know. I always wonder how we can how denying it helps us. Like I need something that predicts the future, and I can predict the future with my methodology.
No, I mean I don't think it's as clear cut as that, right? Like it's just the way in which that often happens in other countries. There's a lot more consolidation of power in a way that doesn't quite exist in the same way as US. The US is a little bit more dynamic. Stuff changes a lot faster. Things can get like calcified in certain industries. And it is a case in certain industries and certain situations where that happens, but it tends to get disrupted in the United States a lot faster than the endemic oligarchies of other like countries.
Okay. Well,
so it's not that it's not a problem. It's just, I don't think it's as clear of a situation in the US as it is in some other places.
Okay, well, we spend trillions more on medicine, thousands per person more on medicine than any other country in the world. That is because of a wholly regulated, captured market that is buying politicians, period. And they don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to come up with a solution to let people buy medicine over borders. They don't want to do that because it destroys their hold on the political process. That's why they all love it. That's why the solutions are nothing that is actually a solution. Price caps on certain drugs that are coming off of patent protection. That's their solution. That's what they're doing. Okay. So when we talk about predictability, we have to look at a regulated, captured, owned market that creates its own laws and is able to charge us multiples for things like Aliquis. Kevin, multiples.
So okay, Bernie Sanders.
I know, right? I'm a freaking commie. Just let me buy my Eliquis from Europe, because then I can pay cash for it, and that I could up my deductibles.
Let me, I don't remember the specific situation with Aliquis where it was developed, etc. But like, what often happens, why American medicine is more expensive is that these drugs are developed. It takes a massive amount of time to get through the regulatory process to develop drugs. That is not a process that is necessarily dictated by the pharmaceutical companies. It's dictated by busybodies who think they need to do more. The FDA needs to do more to keep Americans safe, right? Mm-hmm. So that makes stuff extremely expensive to develop, to test, to get out. It's super inefficient. That is not quite the case in places like Europe and Japan and Canada. 1, 2, a lot of times these pharmaceutical companies make all this money or spend all this money to build to get the drugs, and then they have that patent on it for a little while. And while they have that patent, and Eliquis is one of those drugs that is patented right now, they're going to cash in, right? And they're able to do it because of a complicated system of insurance that we've set up that's, again, not necessarily the result of pharmaceutical companies specifically, but it's something that they benefit from, that like insurance companies and governments have worked together to make insurance tied to employers, and like all things end up going through insurance. And again, it's a web of like a bunch of like some
People
good
profiting
intentions,
off of
some people
American
profiting from
buying
yeah,
medicine.
right.
That
Well, it's but the point is it's not like any one person is sitting in a room being like cackling and be like, we built this. No, it's like a whole bunch of dumb unintended stuff that works together to make everything terrible, right?
or
It-
where interests align, we don't need an official conspiracy because our interests are enough. Where an insurance company wants to make a profit, a medical company, a medicine company wants to make a profit, and they're all regulated heavily by the government, where they can change their rates in conjunction with the government, and the government protecting the pharmaceutical market. The insurance companies going to the government saying, well, we still need to make 7 cents on the dollar. And so it's
yeah, I mean, I don't like the whole like price fixing thing, right? Like again, that sucks. But like we'll get to this question, Patty. But why are they cheaper elsewhere? They're cheaper elsewhere because the American pharmaceutical companies spent the money to develop them, and then like they're on patent here for a lot longer. The generics are cheaper, much quicker in like Europe and Canada. Like that's a big part of why it happens,
all right,
right? Like,
sure.
and so no, you don't believe me? Tell me I'm wrong. Why was that?
Tell you
But
about you're wrong about what?
why are they cheaper elsewhere then, Tim? Is it if there's a different reason for that?
Because we're in a captured, regulated market that does not allow us to buy our drugs from other countries, that they're the exact same product.
Why are they
That's
cheaper
why.
elsewhere? No.
I
Why are they
just
cheaper elsewhere?
because our market is
Just because of
captured.
that, just because like our market's captured and we can't have
Yeah,
competition
because
elsewhere.
their expenses are not the same. We're captured and regulated, and hence we can't buy drugs from someplace else. So we're stuck with the profit
Super
structure that
Olympic.
these built in.
No, I mean,
My logic isn't any less circular than yours.
no. It is, but
No, it's not.
so, but like, okay, what's happening in these other countries is that they're able to sell it off patent quicker, basically, and so
They're
that's
not selling Eliquis off patent anywhere. They're still getting multiples. We're paying multiples for Eliquis than what they are in Europe, than what they are in Canada, than what they are in Sweden, than what they are in Finland, Kevin. I know the argument that you're presenting. I used to understand it and I used to believe it. I just no longer buy into it. It doesn't offer the level of predictability that saying our markets are regulated and thus captured offers. That is way more predictable about what is going on.
yeah. Well, we've been talking about this for like
Too long.
15 minutes now, so I'm like, shit, we need to get to the show. This is a good conversation though. We're gonna have to like maybe another segment on like just this, but like we're not even doing the show part now, and
I know. That
so
was
we
fun.
need
Good
yeah.
conversation. I like it when we disagree. Like it's most of the time we circle right back to an agreement, and you and I are not getting there tonight, and I like that. I think that's good.
That's how it goes sometimes. But all right, we need to get back to the actual show. So we go back in like 3 seconds. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the least of many evils, O'Connor.
That's right, Kevin. I am here, brother. And we guys at WSL, we love you and we appreciate you, but you got to check out our podcast because Kevin and I just argued for like, I don't know, 20 straight minutes and you missed the whole thing. It got kind of heated. And I don't know. We just don't bring that kind of vibe to the radio show. You need to catch our podcast on Spotify, even on Twitter. You can catch it live on the Facebooks, YouTube. So find us, join us. It's a good time.
Yeah,
and it was sparked by a comment in the from our crowd, from our friends, probably Patty or somebody like that. So there you go. You're missing out. But anyways, I think what we want to offer an update, or what do we want to talk about next?
So I think we're going to talk about maybe like the dock worker strike stuff.
Oh, we should talk about that.
Yeah,
that one too. There's another one. It's a good one. They didn't really talk about that in the debate last night, did they?
No, they didn't. That's one thing that they definitely should have asked about. It's pretty important. And I mean there's a handful of things I wish they had asked about, like, and push more and everything. But this being one of them, because this is going to be a big, huge deal, right? So,
Yeah.
like, if you don't know what's going on, there's a union that is in control. Like, they are the longshoremen's union. They are in control of functionally the entire East Coast, like every port on East Coast in the Gulf of Mexico. And they are demanding a fairly significant pay increase, and they're demanding a complete prohibition on any more automation in the ports. It's like a 70% pay increase is
Sure.
what they're looking for. Um, and yeah, they are starting to go on strike, and with all of the East Coast ports shut down, it's gonna start getting expensive. You're gonna start seeing some goods just not show up.
Toilet
Or
paper.
they're gonna have to go in like another way. They have to be flown in.
Yeah.
Um, or
So
they'll
yeah,
go into
look,
Canada or
there's
Mexico. Who knows?
a couple of real problems here. One, I want to first express what I would call some sympathy with the longshoremen and other unions where they negotiate themselves into these long-term contracts that arguably have a hard time keeping up with the inflation that they're seeing. So these guys want, I think it's on order of a 70% pay increase.
Yeah.
And so now everybody's talking about what they actually make. And it's like they've already set up that they're skilled tradesmen who deserve a higher wage. And so that's already in baked into the numbers. 77%, if they haven't had a raise in say 5 years, 77% pay increase is not out of line with keeping them ahead of the inflation game. Now, I don't know what you think about
Mm,
that. You think I'm crazy?
yeah, a little bit. It's still a bit much. I mean, I get it. Like, yeah, you lock yourself to long-term contracts, but usually within these contracts, there is kind of cost of living increases by year. Uh,
And if the cost of living increase by year is say 3%, and then in 2021, 2022, inflation was around 10%, they lost money those years. So they want to
Yeah,
get
I
that
mean,
money back.
and they've also rejected a 50% pay increase.
Yeah,
Again,
they
they're
did.
already fairly well compensated, and they rejected that and in favor of a 70% pay increase, is what they're demanding now, and they're gonna hold America hostage until they get it. And on top of that, they're trying to protect their jobs
Which
by
this is
making the ports less efficient,
yeah, this is where
which
we're gonna get
it,
into hating on them. Like I gave a little bit of love to them, but
yeah,
this is where there's the least of many evils has a real problem with what they're doing. Okay. Technological advancement. They are keeping us on a technological plateau that is going to deny us the efficiencies of robotic transport to protect buggy whip manufacturers. It's time to get with the program, guys. Okay. There is a reality that you can be really high paid, that's fine, but your job's going away in the course of the next 20 years because what you do can be done by big, huge robot machines. And
yep,
you preventing us from enjoying the fruits of that kind of technological advancement is actually costing society way more than your salary is anyway. So, what's the real solution? You're holding us back from technological advancement. You're holding us back from flying cars. You're holding us back from the Jetson lifestyle. And that really bothers me. Like, I'm not like I make it try to sound funny, but I'm absolutely serious about this. You guys are buggy whip manufacturers, and inevitably the robots are taking your jobs. So you might as well go along with it now.
yeah. Like to me, like I would be, I'm sort of with you in that, like I would be more willing to accept pay increases as long as we could automate, right? Like, because
Yeah,
that's where I come in. Like, okay, like fine, like we're gonna do that, and over time, either like there's gonna be more capacity that you'll need to like hire more workers for, but those workers will need to be higher skilled in order to like work within the systems of automation that like are gonna make ports more efficient.
sure.
Or eventually there'll be like kind of shrinkage of the workforce, but that's like not an acceptable solution to the unions. It's like, no, we need to have this many people and have them forever. And we want to constantly be in a position where we can grind the nation's commerce to a halt if we decide we want more money. They don't want to give that aspect of it up. Like it's
Correct.
a total power play. It's again they're threatening the United States just prior to an election too, which is fun.
It's
You know,
hilarious. I just
yeah,
love it. I do love their timing. I'll be honest with you. I like these chaotic things where people have to freak out. I like how we get a taste of how everybody feels about everybody. And then I like how everybody ignores the big issue of what they're really doing is denying the in it they want to deny our entire society the benefits of technological advancement.
yeah.
I think it's great. Like that's the real issue, you know? Like so anyway, I had a conversation with a former UPS manager who said
Mhm.
this thing about technological advancement, the composition of the jobs change, but we don't really end up losing that many jobs because
No.
UPS has gone through major technological advancements. So what happens is that the composition of the workforce changes slightly and it will probably accelerate over time, but that there are still plenty of high paying jobs that get generated off of technological advancement. It's like our numbers of employment have gone up anyway, and
Yeah.
our salaries for those people have gone up anyway, and we're all making more money, so the whole entire process benefits from technological advancement. Now, I know some of the UPS drivers probably will be wagging their angry finger at me because they have to work really hard, but
That they
there
do.
is a lot of benefits to this technological advancement, and I can't come up with other than there being Luddites or whatever,
Yeah.
like it,
No, I mean,
no,
again, it's yeah, it keeps our society poorer by like failing to advance technology, right? Like, and again, if that happened with the original Luddites back in the birth of the Industrial Revolution in England, as it often happened, like because that isn't the first time that happened. Like a new technology comes around and literally government like will destroy it, to protect some guild, right? Um, that there's a history of this stuff. Again, I'm not totally denying the point you're making during the break, Tim, and WISL listeners, you got to listen to that conversation.
right.
It's a thing that happens, and that's a thing that might happen here, if we end up with a situation where, the government intervenes on behalf of the dock worker unions because Biden's a pro-labor guy in order to stop automation and protect jobs. Again, it won't end up protecting jobs in the long term. It'll just make stuff more expensive for us. It'll make it so that less stuff comes in. It'll make it so that we can't keep up with like more advanced economies that are like starting to like adopt these automations like in Europe and in China. uh, what ends up happening is exactly what you said, like over and over and over again. We've seen it. Maybe this time will be different, but probably not. Uh, People find work. And in fact, what ends up happening is you just become more efficient and it becomes easier for you to pay the remaining workers more money, right?
Well,
And
I would even put it like this, Kevin, if you don't mind me jumping in here, but
yeah.
technological advancement and lower cost delivery services benefit everyone with cheaper goods,
Mhm.
faster ways of getting to you, generally more environmentally conscious. All of these things are net benefits to society that I don't know how we can ignore. Like we went from the Industrial Revolution where people were growing their own tomatoes and freaking out if they had a blight to to now I can push a button on something that's sitting on my coffee table and watch my choice of 40,000 TV shows. I imagine a future, and I'm not even joking, where we have flying cars. So every piece of technological advancement contributes to my vision of the future. And to deny me that, to deny my children that is
Mhm.
absurd,
Yeah.
I guess.
And like these
Eh,
things are compounding, right? Like, again, when you don't take the opportunity to grow now, like the growth ends up, feeding new things. It makes it possible, like to free up more time to like do other better things with the labor that still needs to be put in, like wherever it is, like, and that could be like thinking tasks or other manual tasks or whatever.
Sure.
There's opportunities to continue to grow. And unfortunately, this organization is, threatening to shut down the entire economy of the United States. And like they're talking about like, oh yeah, we're gonna be the bad guys, right? Like literally that's what the head of the union is talking about. Yeah, we're gonna be bad guys. People are gonna hate us. It's probably gonna like screw up the labor movement for a while because people are gonna be so upset with this because if your small business is dependent on like goods coming in from overseas, if your manufacturing facility is dependent on goods coming in from overseas and now you suddenly can't get your stuff anymore, and this isn't an argument for tariffs, quiet Trump people. um or we,
If we
that's
take that tariff money and buy everybody an electric car, I think we have a trade. It's a deal.
good. You know what, Tim? You know what they could do? They'll trade in their other car, right? And then they
Yep.
get an electric car.
Yep.
What a crazy, doesn't that sound like a good idea, Tim? Sounds like your
No.
favorite program.
No, I want a free car. That's
Free
what I
car.
want. Yeah.
Not trading in cars, just
Look,
a free car.
yeah, I made a bad joke there. But this is what people want. This is how they are processing things in it. We're standing on the precipice of perhaps another technological revolution. And of course there's going to be pushback, but I've got to say that this is a net lose-lose for everyone in the world. So,
Yeah.
and this one hurts exports as much as it hurts
No, it does.
imports.
That's also true.
It's something like 2 to 1, right? Like twice the ships leave there loaded with stuff than come in bringing in stuff. I heard
America produces a lot of stuff. People don't think about it that politicians will complain about manufacturing all the time, but we actually still produce a lot of stuff. We produce more stuff than ever. It's just it's done with fewer people. But
yeah, so bombs can't get to Ukraine without those ports, fellas. Let's go.
Dang it, Tim. Trying to make a point here.
I'm sorry. I guess can't resist. I just couldn't resist that one. It was sitting right there.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I don't know. Again, to me, some of these this is why it's tough for me sometimes to get behind like certain aspects of organized labor. Like even though again, like I'm sort of with you. Like I think that the pay raise is probably a bit much, but like I'm sympathetic to that, right? When it's organizations who are trying to get a piece of profit that's being made in these situations, right? Like I get that. That said, if the profit is in the form of rents, because things are artificially expensive because they've made it that way, because they forced the government to like prevent automation or impose higher costs on the American people through the work that they're doing, less sympathetic to that. And even less sympathetic when, and it's not really the case, fully the case here, but like with government-based unions, like, teachers unions, police unions, stuff like that. No, you're not getting like a piece of the profit that you've contributed to. You're getting a piece of the loot in that case. I'm less sympathetic to that. Sorry.
Yeah. So what are the administration's options here, Kevin? Can they invoke the Taft-Hartley Act and be like, all right, we're going in and we're using the military and we're going to start unloading ships. See you guys later.
Yep, they could do that. They could declare a national emergency and they could break the strike by bringing in other folks.
Like they did to the railroad unions. That was awesome.
Yeah.
They just like cracked down on them. And those guys were only asking for 24% and numbers that barely kept up with inflation. Like,
right.
So these guys, their timing is, I've got to say, impressive. Like they know they've got one last chance at this. You know what I mean? Like eventually technology, we're going to have to accept that technology is going to take those jobs. Not all of them. There's no way it can take all of them, but it's going to radically change it.
If they're doing this and like they really want the pay and the concession that they're going to give up is the automation, like, yeah, man, fine. Like, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I'm not that mad about that.
Vivek Ramaswamy, Kevin, speaking like a libertarian, dropped some anti-Jones Act rhetoric, and I couldn't quite like piece it all together. I think he just wanted to be like name dropping the Jones Act being bad in relation to this potential strike. He's like, I think we need to examine the effects of the Jones Act on this situation as well. And as a libertarian, we get pumped when we hear about a politician talking about the Jones Act. So I was like, and I tried to make heads or tails of it, but it was like, I probably on the PBD podcast, and it's not like they ever go into an issue to explore libertarian theory. It's just like, I think I will want libertarians to like me, so I'm going to pan the Jones Act right now. That was the impression that I got.
Vivek, you keep learning about the Jones Act. That's
keep
great.
talking
It's
about
terrible.
it too,
Let's keep talking about it, man. If you can get the Trump people riled up about repealing the Jones Act, like that would be fantastic.
That would be great, man. It would be another net benefit. Like there's a very heavily protectionist market that costs all of us so much money, denies us the benefit of technological advancement, all sorts of things.
Yeah. On that note, we do have to head to break. Thanks again for joining us here on the Free Solution and WYSL. We'll be back in just a few minutes. All right.
Yeah. Our bro Jared Anderson is out there, Tuweli, Utah. I love it. My brother Pat, I saw him out there. Oh, we must have been. He made a comment back when we were talking about property. Arguably, they're probably getting money from our government for free to buy property. That seems to be a mode. But yeah, what's up, Pat? By the way, how are you? And then Shelly's in the house. Shelly wants a 1972 Volkswagen Squareback with the heat upgrade, great gas mileage, camper, and road trips without GPS tracking. Yeah, I mean, my mom gave me a 1992 Volkswagen Rabbit diesel, Kevin,
Yeah.
and I swear to God that thing was A, built like a tank, B, got, I don't know, 45, 50 miles to the gallon on with diesel.
That's
And
not bad.
it was absurd. Like that car paid me. People would hit it. They'd have to give me money to get it fixed. I wouldn't get it fixed. I'd pocket the cash, but it happened like 4 times. I'm not even kidding. It was the best car I ever owned. And this was back in the 90s when I was already richer than I had ever imagined I would be, coming from a small kid that like was slave labor on a dairy farm. You know? I was
Yeah.
like pocketfuls of
Good
cash.
deal.
Yeah. So
See, Shelley also says, do you think that Trump will use his close working relationships with unions to get an agreement to end the strike? I've been hearing some blue anon conspiracies about this. That like
yeah.
the dock workers union president has been seen in photos with Trump, and he's doing this now to try to disrupt the economy and throw the election to Trump.
I love it. I love it.
And then Trump's gonna like win the election and then broker a deal.
Shouldn't the conclusion be that the government just has too much power, that it's just too corrupt? Shouldn't that
That's a good conclusion.
We've just allowed this to get to a point of absurdity when these things become possible, you know?
Yeah.
Even the dock workers union has too much power to deny me the benefits of technological advancement, to keep me on a technological plateau where I have AI that will proofread my emails and draw me pictures, but I can't have a robot that will bring me like a tanker full of, I don't know, baby oil.
Baby oil.
Pete,
All right, Diddy.
a Pete Diddy reference. All right, I don't know.
Thousands of bottles for some reason.
Yeah. Look, I mapped it out one time on my way to work. Like we could have slow moving cargo vehicles traveling on ancillary pathways to local highways. They can drive all night long. They can go 25 miles an hour and go further. They can in 24 hours, you go further going 25. You can have it compartmentalized where a little robot breaks off and goes over to the local Walmart and drops off its load of goods, or comes right to your house, right? It could happen, Kevin. And we're sitting here like protecting truckers and protecting longshoremen. And it's not that I don't love the human beings that do these jobs. That's not it, man. You guys could be artists. You could be out there making tables and drawing pictures instead of driving trucks on the road.
I mean, and again, like a lot of times you end up expanding capacity in those situations, right? It's not necessarily that like all truckers are going to go away. It's just like, okay, there's going to be people who are going to be like monitoring these systems to like make sure that like the goods still get to the right place. And there's still going to be some that are going to be driving. It might be like last mile driver type of things. So, okay, like the OTR stuff changes a bit, but like the local delivery stuff is going to be a bit more, and then you get more time home with your families, more weekends home, like that type of stuff. But like the stuff that stinks, and I know it's compensated well relative to other things, stuff that stinks, that's going to be done by robots. The stuff that's like relatively straightforward and allows you to spend more time with your family, there's more money for that now, and you can still do it.
Yeah, and look,
it's still a skill.
Obviously, Zach, I'm not the only one that's had this thought that we could automate delivery systems and give people better, more interesting lives. And technological advancement benefits everybody. That means there's value in the economy. We've got to keep the government from stealing it from us. Like, that's what people are afraid of, is all of this. We go through a period of technological advancement. The government finds a way to capture it through inflation or false scarcity or controlling a market. Yeah, man. So anyway, I'm glad that
Yeah.
I'm not the only one that had that thought kicking around in my head.
All right, but we should get this last segment done.
Mhm.
We keep talking if we want to, but we'll get one more done, and then we will call it a night. All right, let's go back in 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Day, joined by Tim, the least of many evils O'Connor.
Kevin, I am here tonight. And again, once again, WYSL audience, thank you for joining us. Guys out there listening in Twitter and X and YouTube, Facebook, hit the like button, leave a comment, talk to Kevin and I. But you guys on WYSL, we love you, but you're missing out. You got to join us on the podcast, or you got to catch the show live, because you're missing out on the extended conversations that Kevin and I have. So I am now about to announce another political prosecution by the Biden administration. Poor Eric Adams is now in the crosshairs of the weaponized judicial system that we know as the Biden-Harris administration.
That Southern District of New York. They're going after him.
Yeah,
with
man.
The Foreign Agent Registration Act.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, among other things.
Yeah, you know.
A handful of things. So what are they accusing him of? Like, how is the Biden administration violating Eric Adams' rights? So what are they going at? What they trump up against him?
They dug up some pseudo charges from 2013, back when Eric Adams was a borough president, and perhaps assisted and took money from Turkish individuals to get a fire station and a new consulate or welcome center, Turkish welcome center built. He maybe fast tracked some development and maybe took some campaign donations in return.
Yeah, and allegedly personal benefits, like from the Turkish Airlines.
Like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on a Turkish airline. Yeah. That's nothing, Kevin. Sorry to interrupt you.
Allegedly, it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars in perks.
That's what they're gonna say.
Yeah, of course, like it's a very expensive PB&J sandwich.
Yeah. Caviar.
But yeah, so what's wild about this, again, like, these are all like accusations, right? Like legitimately take them, for what they are, right? Is an accusation by the government. It might be true, it might not. The feds sometimes lie about this stuff, right? Like, it's just, that is true. But there is an interesting aspect of this that I think is worth discussing, in that the thing that allegedly happened, right, was like, it takes forever to build stuff in New York City. And that's why, the Turkish government and, Turkish Airlines, they got involved in trying to speed things along and finding alternate routes of speeding things along. And then Eric Adams, in his role as borough president, had allegedly, kind of squeezed some of the, like, the fire department and other folks to get the permits done faster than would normally happen, because he was getting that extra compensation. Now,
I mean, sure. I want to point out what our friend Legacy Zach out there in YouTube land or in Twitter land points out, that Adams recently was incredibly critical of the Biden administration and their migrant policies.
I'm gonna put a pin in that for just a second, because I want to finish making my point, which is that the only reason that this is a problem at all, it is one of those things where it is a problem created by government and then creates the conditions for corruption, right?
That's actually a huge point, right? That the regulatory environment has captured the building market.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's part of it, right? So it's like, okay, if the government didn't create a situation where it was nearly impossible to build, it wouldn't be worth the criminal risk or the money to bribe officials to build stuff, because what should happen in a functional government is that it's pretty straightforward. You're able to just go follow the straightforward rules and build your stuff. And instead, it's a bureaucratic nightmare, and you got to grease the wheels a little bit grease some palms a bit to get stuff moving along, because it's worth the risk to you in order to get the thing that you want to have built, like the consulate or welcome center, whatever it was.
Yeah, look,
Government regulation and red tape creates an environment where corruption is possible.
certainly that always brings me up to this point of where everybody accuses Trump of, bribing officials to get his permits done, and I'm like, well, we have a system that encourages corruption,
Mhm.
and who's corrupt? The bribee in this case, or the person? Wait, the person receiving the bribe or the person giving the bribe? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's the one that has ostensibly promised to serve their constituency through moral action and is taking money to I think that's where the corruption is. I think. I'm not doing a great job of explaining that. I'll be honest with you, but
No, but no, I see the point that you're trying to make, which is, that, like, the person receiving the bribe is really the problem here. And that's, like, there's a lot of incentive for them to keep that corrupt system in place because they materially benefit from it. And this is like kind of like a negative cycle that can spin out of control really fast. And there are other countries like where this is a lot worse, where that is just a normal course of business, like Ukraine at one point being one of them. And Russia being another example. Like, both of those countries, that was, and in some cases still is, a normal course of business where, like, you gotta shake down some officials, or maybe give them a bit of money in order to, like, actually get anything done. But that's not how things ought to work, and it, like, harms us, like, as a society, where if you can't get anything done unless you know someone or you're giving them a kickback, like, it makes stuff more expensive. It makes it less efficient. It means that, like, we have less stuff. It means, people are getting enriched based off of making your life more difficult. And I'll read this comment from Penderburn on Twitter, or on X. It says, Kevin making the point as I was typing it, this is a direct example how government regulation keeps human innovation from reaching its full potential. It's extortion. 100%,
it
man. Like, yeah,
absolutely is, brother.
it's extortion.
Amen. That's a nice one.
All
So
right.
poor
So we can
Attic
get back to this comment, though.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you think that Adams' indictment has something to do with his stance on the migrant crisis? And as I was pointing out just a few seconds ago, that he did make some, like, harsh criticisms of the way that arguably 110, 120,000 migrants were shipped directly to New York City with no accompanying resources. So,
Mhm.
I felt like that was is that something that they would set up a prosecution over? He was arguably going to be one of the poster boys of their campaign. They cut ties with him after that, and now he's being prosecuted. Certainly, I think it's possible that this is a retaliatory prosecution, that they were able to ignore this up until he became something of a thorn in their side. Now, honestly, all I think he was doing was trying to shake down the federal government for more money, which is
That,
just a
that's
job
my
that a
theory on
mayor's
his
supposed to do.
yeah, that's
But
my theory on his migrant position, is that, like, he was shaking down money. Like, isn't that
yeah,
it was another grift in a sense, but, like, in this case, it was,
absolutely.
it not necessarily personally benefiting him. That's not what I'm accusing him of in this situation, but to
Right.
say, like, hey, if people are going to be sent here, like, you need to send me resources to deal with it, because right now, like, I mean, to be fair, New York City would be in a better position to deal with it if they just built stuff, but
Correct.
they've also put themselves in a difficult position because they made Airbnbs illegal as well. So you create, like, a disincentive to create temporary housing for people, and then the hotels filled up, and then, like, okay, then all of our temporary housing filled up, and then the hotels filled up, and now no one can get hotels, and they're mad about that. And now some people we just don't have homes for anymore. You could solve a lot of this by just, like, being less interventionist in your local economy. Just let Airbnbs thrive, build stuff. But nonetheless, I get it, his point, though. Like, okay, if people are going to be here as refugees for a while, like, send some money with that so we can, like, deal with this more effectively. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, they also have stuff like the right to the shelter law in New York City as well that make it, like, really difficult. It's like they're legally obliged to provide everyone housing. So that makes stuff expensive. But again, this is a thing that they've imposed on themselves in this situation. Now, again, do I think it's a political prosecution? I would need to see more evidence of that. Like, to me, it's I take the same position on this that I take with Trump's prosecution. Uh, sure, like there's like dislike there, but also there might actually be underlying crimes. So
Right, but those underlying arguably, look, you know which way I'm going to go with this. I'm going to be like, it is most likely a political punishment. The process itself is the punishment, and that they ignored these things. There were complaints about it
right,
back when it happened. They chose to ignore it, and now all of a sudden it becomes an issue when he
yeah,
becomes somewhat politically inconvenient for the
yeah.
Biden
So
administration, the Harris Biden administration. Uh,
so let me like make a libertarian point quick, which is that, like, yes, if the feds want to get you on something, there's the, like, was it like what, 3 crimes a day or something? I forget what it's called,
yeah,
what it is now. Yeah,
three
but like
felonies a day.
3 felonies a day. But, like the if they want to get you on something, they can find something, right? But this isn't like some weird stretch of the law in the way that they're going after Trump in New York, right? Like the things they went after for Trump in New York were a stretch. And we
Oh
talked
my
about
God,
that.
they
And like
were.
even that, I'm
We
like,
have.
no way.
It's
Now that was like the local DA, but like, man, this is they're really stretching this. In the case of Eric Adams, the accusation that's being made is like a very specific type of corruption that I think is worth prosecuting. Like, I think it's bad to take bribes in order to like help people get around your onerous building process. You should just fix the building process.
yeah. The
Like,
answer is always to disempower the government, and we get a less
yes,
corrupt society. Like that's the reality. Government should be a service organization, not a hindrance to human development, and that's what we have. Like it's bad. So look, how are we doing on time here?
we got a couple more minutes left, like 2 more minutes.
All right, so you guys have heard me express my views on the death penalty and how I'm not a big fan. Arguably, this guy set a world record, Kevin, for being the longest serving inmate on death row in the entire world, but
Hmm.
specifically his place of residence was Japan. Um, After 48 years in jail, 45 years on death row, Hakameda, let me see if I can get his Iowa Hakameda, an 88-year-old former boxer, was found not guilty last Thursday
Wow.
by Shizuoka District Court, which concluded that the police and prosecutors collaborated in fabricating and planting evidence against him. The court said he was forced into confession by violent, hours-long closed interrogations. And guys, this came from our friend Patty. Um, the date on it is September 30th, 2024. And so one of the many reasons I stand against the death penalty is the potential of innocence. Now, I certainly think that there are reprehensible people that deserve to spend the rest of their lives in jail. I am not anti-punishment. I am not a rehabilitation first kind of guy. I'm not saying that violent predators can be rehabilitated. I'm just anti-death penalty. I think it's a
Yeah.
power, one more power that the government should not have ever. So, anyways, there you go. I have proof now. It's
Yeah.
conclusive. No more death
Conclusive.
penalty.
Yeah. No, this is the one case we need. It's just
That's it.
end it.
Done.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm against the death penalty as well. So that this is a good case to point out, though, because we talked about this last week a bit too. It's just like you can't undo that.
No.
So we don't have any time to talk about this, but I want to mention it on the radio show just to say, like, we might talk about it after the show, is that in Rochester, they're creating a zone every weekend where you have to show ID to get into it. You have to be 21 or over to get into certain streets in Rochester, Friday and Saturday.
What kind of nonsense is this? What's going on here?
Yeah.
What is
So
Rochester coming to?
it's for safety, Tim.
It's for your safety. Okay.
Yeah,
All
that's right.
right.
So yeah, no more discussion needed.
No.
It's about keeping safe. But we're out of time for the show. But I think we'll talk about this for a couple minutes after the show. WYSL audience, go find our podcast, A Free Solution. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the other radio appearance I did today too.
Oh yeah, we got
and then we'll call it a night. But thank you, WYSL audience, for listening to A Free Solution this evening. Have a great night, folks. Take care. Ended that segment like a couple minutes early because we went over by like several minutes, both other segments.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, like a minute and a half for the last one and like 2 minutes
wow.
for the one before that. It's all right.
All
But
right.
anyway, let's talk about the thing on the East End. So I'll read off the one of the statements about it from the city. It says, starting Saturday, September 28th, between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., pedestrians can enter a special event zone at 4 locations. And then they list off the streets, basically like East and Alexander area. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's like a bar district. It tends to be where like the people who just turned 21 tend to go.
Okay.
It's just one of those like kind of younger bar districts. I used to hang out there a bunch when I first moved to Rochester. I don't make it that way all too often anymore. Like
Well,
I
you've
hang
got
out like
kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
I ain't got time for that now.
Right.
And
Right.
but I'd go over to like the Old Toad occasionally. They have like a an axe throwing place over there too. That's fun to go
Oh,
to
that's cool.
occasionally. But so anyway, that area, like now there's been violence problems, right? So there's been like a few shootings that happened there. And so they're like, okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna close it off the cars, we're gonna make it a pedestrian only traffic area, and you have to show ID to get in at any of these spots. So you can't drive there at all. And they think that that's going to fix the violence problem. But like
Probably not.
I don't know that it's gonna actually fix the problem. Because they're not like, as far as I'm aware, it's just you have to show ID and you have to be 21 or over to get in. And I don't know that they're like, again, like searching people. So like you could still bring a gun in. I don't know that like the violence has been exclusive to people under 21 in that area. And I also just don't like the fact that like I have to show my ID to get onto a public street every single weekend.
I
Right.
don't
Like,
blame you. I think that's obnoxious. That's all I can say is I think it's obnoxious.
yeah, and like you could still get, if you live there, there's apartments above these places too. Like if you live there, you can like still get in. But like again, like what happens if you want to bring a friend over on Saturday night? Like is the police officer gonna have to decide if like you're really going to your apartment or not? Like,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then
That's how it's gonna be, man. They're checking
yeah,
papers, bro. Like
like yeah,
that's the
papers please.
reality.
That lets like, oh okay, like nah, I don't think your friend needs to come visit you. I know you're just gonna like play cards and definitely not drink underage, but like nope, not allowed in the special event zone this weekend. Can't have friends at your apartment every weekend,
Oh
any
my
weekend.
god.
Again, I'm
That's
like, I'm
awful.
not sure how it's gonna actually like play out. But like I don't like the thought of like you as a grown adult can't go to public streets. And how does that like fit in with like if we pass Prop 1, we talked about this last week, and you can't discriminate based on age. Is this discrimination based on age? Yes. Yes, it
As
is.
a
It's like
matter
very
of fact, it
clearly
is.
discrimination based on age. If you as an adult person, 18, 19, 20, can't go to a public street, yeah, that's discrimination based on age. And again,
Wow.
if the bars want to do that too, like fine, like whatever, right? Like they say, okay, like after this hour is 21 and over, right? If you're, like the axe throwing place. Okay,
Sure.
sure. Yeah, like that's fine. They can do that. But no, weird that I don't like the special event zone. And I hope I don't know how long it's gonna last, but I hope
Oh,
that
who
doesn't
knows? Sounds like East Germany. Like
sounds like
papers,
East
please.
Germany. Papers,
Papers,
please.
please.
Yeah.
You
No, I don't
know?
want that to be a normal thing. And then
You just get Bass
nope.
Ackwards does not like that. Not at all.
Nope, not like that. Worse. Joe says, "Do you think Eric Adams should resign? I feel like he should step aside. If it was Rudy, it would be the only story in the news. It hasn't really picked up that much steam. I've heard like libertarians talk about it.
Yeah.
AOC made a comment about it.
She
But
wants him to resign. She
yeah,
thinks he should. I don't think he should. I think
you don't
he
think he
should be
should?
like, nope,
He's
I
gonna
don't
fight
think
it.
so.
Gonna fight
I-
this political
This
prosecution.
is, yeah, because, what, hey, I got some breaking news though, Kevin.
Yeah.
And look, X is the place for breaking news. Donald Trump has pledged to free Ross Ulbricht.
Didn't he already do that?
The date line on his tweet is October 2nd, 2024 at 4:53 p.m.
Didn't he already promise that to the Libertarian Party like a while ago?
I don't think so. I don't think he made the explicit promise. I think he was talking about First Amendment in relation to Assange and Snowden, and that he would pardon Assange and drop the prosecution against Snowden.
Like
right?
the Ross Ulbricht thing, but it was it was like a thing like the Angela what's her face? Angela McArdle was making a big deal about, and why
She
the
definitely
Libertarian
has
Party
been making
should
a big deal about it, and she
support
has
him.
been asking for it.
Because he sort of promised it at the Libertarian convention.
I believe that this is the official promise, because he put it out on Truth Social and X. Nothing's official till it makes it to X.
Listen,
Okay.
I'm still skeptical. Still a little bit skeptical.
Fair enough.
Just because he could have pardoned him before and didn't.
Look.
Maybe he's changed his mind now. Maybe he saw new evidence.
Maybe he really thought about it, and maybe he really wants libertarian votes. Sure, like
could be. Maybe he feels he needs libertarian votes. Maybe he heard my show today. He's like, "Wow, man, I'm losing them.
Oh yeah,
and
so you did another radio show, man. What do you
did
got?
Another radio show. I was on a different radio show
awesome.
today. I was on WXXI. So it's the local NPR affiliate. So they bring me in. They bring me in and like, okay, here's like a normie libertarian that doesn't scare our NPR listeners too much.
Right.
So unfortunately I couldn't get I was trying to Dwayne Whitmer, if you happen to listen to this show, I owe you one, buddy. Sorry I couldn't get you on the show. I tried.
Dwayne can be hilarious in situations like that. One of his strong points. He should do it more often. Really.
Yeah. So like I tried to get him on and I asked him, but then they're like, actually, we're only going to give you half an hour. So we're just going to have one of you on and we think you'd be good. I'm like, okay. So I ended up doing that. So I'm gonna have to have Dwayne on.
Yeah.
On our show, maybe.
No, that would be great. I haven't seen him in a while. It'd be good.
Yeah. And so anyway, I talked about like Chase Oliver and stuff. They wanted to see like, okay, what are libertarians thinking about this election? And of course, I got to deliver my Donald Trump and Kamala Harris both suck. I said it nicer for that audience, but because they'd ask me questions like, oh, but Donald Trump, he and again, I like Evan Dawson, so I'm not like saying anything mean, but I'd ask questions like, what about Republican voters who don't want to vote for Donald Trump because like of the January 6th stuff, basically, like see a threat to democracy and like that.
I'd be like, they're weak because January 6th wasn't an insurrection and you need to shut your mouth. But
this is why I'm on the show and not you. It's like they'd be like, "Oh man, I can't listen to this guy." And I was like, "Listen, like because and I actually do feel as well. Like I don't like what Donald Trump did, so I understand why people don't want to vote for him for that reason. But Kamala Harris is like someone who flagrantly breaks the Constitution as well. She just does it in a politer manner. Like her and the Biden administration do it all the time. They did it with student loans. They did it with the vaccine mandates. They do it with all sorts of laws that they know are not going to pass the courts, but like they try to get through it anyway. Like, do you want a government that operates that way with a complete disregard for the rule of law, the complete disregard for the Constitution? No. The Democrats lose me too because they've gone in a completely illiberal direction, just as the Republicans have. And until they do that, like, I'm going to punish them for it. I'm going to take my vote elsewhere.
All right. And now, what's your conclusion that you're going to vote for Chase Oliver and Mike Termott?
That's right. So,
all right.
Yeah, and that's and I talked them up a little bit. And then just talked about like libertarian issues. So if you want to check it out, it's on my Twitter. You can see it. I look pissed off in the photo, as does Evan. We actually had a very nice conversation. I'm not mad, but like I looked at the photo. I'm like, I mean, the volunteer who got it, dude named George. I'm like, man, like I think you took like 3 pictures, and you looked the one where we like looked the most pissed.
Oh, that's fun. That's great.
I don't think he meant anything like ill by it. Like you seem like a nice dude, but
the photographer's job is to take the picture that would. People like disagreements. You know what I mean? But every time that I've been interviewed, and it hasn't been a million times, but certainly reporters talked to me when I was running. I certainly caught. I should share that newspaper article that I got a whole half page in the Daily Star when I announced my candidacy because like they just caught me at the right moment. I was kind of toying with it, and they wanted to know my opinion on Donald Trump versus I think it was Hillary Clinton. No, Joe Biden, right? When did I even run? I can't remember now. Yeah, it
Yeah.
must have been during the lockdowns. So they wanted to know my opinion of Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. And I'm like, this is absurd. Like, this is an absurdity that we're here right now. Like, this is so bad, And I managed to get some great talking points, some great libertarian talking points, and built an immediate response out of that. Now, so it was a lot of fun. And reporters have always been polite. They're
Yeah.
trying to get me to say something crazy, and I
Exactly.
oblige.
That's they want to get you talking, so you can look at the weirdo libertarian. I gave him the rope, and sure enough,
That's right. That's correct.
no, I've always had I've been on connections with Evan Dawson a bunch of times. Like he's very nice, especially when I was a candidate. My interviews were a bit more not aggressive exactly, but I think he takes a different approach to candidates than he does to random analysis or discussion. But he's an open-minded guy who wants to hear different points of view. And again, I don't always agree with him, but he tried to have a genuine conversation about where libertarians are coming from and how we're viewing this election to help educate his audiences about what's happening in the election outside of the two-party framework. And for that, I appreciate.
Well, they have certain areas where they can hit libertarians where they run out of answers, right? Like, well, what are you going to do about people starving down the street from you? You know what I mean? Or what are you going to do to fix the roads? Like, you can hit. What are you going to do about the national defense? And certainly,
Fuck
libertarians.
them hoe-ass roads.
Yeah, he's fuck them hoe-ass roads. But certainly, the answers that come out of libertarians' mouths are not going to play well in Pretoria, as they say. Normies are going to be like, what? That's insane. You know what I mean?
So the way I always think about these things, because again, I've been on this audience, I've gotten some positive reception for it. So you just got to think of what does the audience actually value? And in this case, what I got asked about, which could be seen as a gotcha question if I wasn't ready for it, but it's hey, so someone like Chase Oliver, his platform is that we should abolish the Department of Education. Won't that hurt children, right? Okay, but that's an opportunity to talk about okay, listen, the Department of Education to me doesn't add a lot of value in the function that it does now. It ends up creating a lot of it spends a lot of money and attaches a lot of strings to it, but it's not necessarily improving the value of the education on the school level. So I think states should be able to do that. The Department of Education can go away, and there will still be national nonprofit clearinghouses to talk about and advocate for what they see as curriculum and pedagogy best practices. So we can do that. We can implement school choice at the state level, and get better opportunities for people to find their own paths to improve education. Right. So that's how you answer that, and you talk about. Keep in mind, answer.
That's very
people.
Good.
Yeah, people value education among this audience and everywhere. Right. The normies like education, so they don't want to hear.
Absolutely.
Who gives a shit about the education system? We don't need to be paying for it anyway. If you leave it at that, they're gonna be like, oh, this person's crazy. But if you talk about hey, education's not going to go away. It's still going to be there. And you have to be a little bit more specific than don't worry, the market will take care of it because people don't believe you.
Right.
Let's talk about okay, how do we roll back, federalized education and get it back down to state, local, and family level. There's a path to get there, and there's a path where we're still able to get good educational outcomes. And it doesn't need to be done through the Department of Education.
And again, for me, I think I would effectively answer that one as well, especially if I was putting on my political hat. But we find moments where was it one of the guys that was running our party got an interview on a radio show, and they hit him with, but what about the roads or something like that? And his answer I was like, well, why weren't you prepared for that question? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah, no, like there's always listen, if I'll be listening out there right now. If you ever find yourself in an interview with someone who is not a libertarian, it's not a libertarian podcast, they're going to ask a gotcha question like that. It's
oh,
always,
absolutely.
no matter how nice the rest of the conversation is, like they feel obligated to pick out the craziest libertarian position. And again, I've done several interviews with this guy. So like we've gotten, well, would you legalize nuclear weapons? You're pro Second Amendment. Like, why not those too? Like literally we've gotten stuff like that.
Right.
You just got to be ready for it. Like think of the most extreme like libertarian position. You're going to be asked about that and you can decide if you're going to evade the question, you're going to deny it, or you're going to like put it in terms that people are going to understand, right? Like those are your three options.
Correct. Yeah, no, that's good. Anyways, Kevin, it's been nice. Like, I think the internet's going down tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Is it here? Did it hit yet? There
The
is
internet's going
a
down.
coronal mass ejection coming at the Earth, and it's
Oh.
basically going to be create a new Carrington event. And I'm not sure that your electric vehicle is going to start tomorrow.
Will we get pretty northern lights though? Like that's what I don't
We are
know.
going to get some of the best northern lights we have ever seen.
Not missing it. I'm gonna go up to the lake this time.
There
Like,
you go.
I don't have an electric car. It's fine. I downgraded my car, so like it's less electric than before.
Nice. I do think that this one, they're not predicting an actual Carrington event, but it is a pretty massive one, and we are expecting perhaps some communications outages and some pretty boss northern lights. And we didn't even get to talk about the viral sensation Moo Ding.
No, we didn't get. I'll just read this one other comment from Legacy's Excellence. I think we should be 3D printing tactical nukes. It's the American way. That I forgot. There is a fourth option when answering this question, which is lean in. You can do that too.
I do like leaning in. That's probably my favorite.
I think on this show, oftentimes that's what we end up doing. Is
yeah, absolutely.
But this show's a little bit different.
I mean, at least I try to, even if just to make me laugh and make you laugh.
Yeah.
And I do think there is value in being willing to lean in to it. Like, yeah, everybody should have a nuclear weapon, and then no one will ever use a nuclear weapon.
Like mad, but for everybody, right?
Right, exactly. And you come back with, well, and our society is a polite society, and you can come up with all sorts of things that deflect away from that question. Like the number of like violent crimes that are stopped by someone who has a weapon is incredibly underreported, man. Why do we even have to have this conversation? That's what it's really about. Why do you want people to be unsafe and not be able to protect themselves? That's absurd.
Well, no, that's a good way of doing it. Like, Tim, did you ever play Who's Driving? Did you ever do that political training with the LP?
No. I think every day in my house with my mom was like that, though. You know what I mean? Like we had to defend ourselves.
Yeah, right. But it's a good thing. Like, talk about what you want to talk about. Like, hey, no, the real issue is that, like, why do you want people to be unsafe? Why do you not care about my self-defense and safety?
Correct.
It's a good way. Like, talk about what you want to talk about. All right, but anyway, you want to talk about Moo Dang.
Yeah, I do. Look at that. There she is. This vicious killer. And look, guys, I'm going to say that hippos are one of the most dangerous animals in the entire world. They literally kill more people than lions and tigers and bears put together. But anyways, here's an incredibly cute baby hippo attacking her handler. Luckily, it does not have teeth or weight. And people are in love with this thing. If you go around the internet, it's going crazy just a little bit. Everybody's checking it out. It is pretty cute looking, but it looks like kind of like a large lizard. I don't know. Something about it.
A weird little slimy baby hippo.
Yeah.
So, I think it was Jason Pargin, who's an author, had like a tweet about that. As like, basically he called the hippo an asshole. But like that's why he's biting people. But all hippos are kind of jerks. If that hippo was bigger, it would be thinking about murdering you, like just for being near it. Like,
I'm not sure it would be thinking about it. I think it would
just be doing. You're right. It isn't thinking. It's just going to be doing the murdering.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. Hippos are jerks. You should not. If it could kill, if Moo Dang could kill, it would.
Yeah, like she always chooses violence. It's always gonna choose violence. You are the enemy. Hippos like live in streams with other hippos, and that's the only thing that gets a free pass from them is
Yeah,
other hippos. And if you're not a hippo that's part of their crew, they'll kill that too. Like
that's true.
outside of their crew, hippos dead, lions dead, tigers dead, humans dead. They're vicious, murdering psychopaths. Even as cute as that little thing is, because she does look kind of cute right there.
Oh, actually, so I'm gonna share my screen quick because I found the tweet and it's funny because there's a follow-up tweet to it.
Let me take that one down.
Yeah. But people keep asking why this viral baby hippo is constantly seen biting everything and everyone. And according to experts, there's a really interesting reason. He's a piece of shit. And then his follow-up tweet
He
is,
misgendered her. What?
no,
the
that you caught it immediately. He said, I've been informed that Mudang hippo is female. My bias led me to assume a piece of shit would automatically be male. But of course, any gender can be a piece of shit. I intend to learn from this.
Congratulations, Jason. That's a good job.
So, I don't know, good stuff. But anyway,
yeah, on that note,
I'm gonna have to put a profanity warning on this site because I think we've dropped quite a few swear words.
all right. Is that
Right?
something we can do?
No,
All right.
yeah, oh yeah, no, it's a thing. We can add profanity warnings to our Spotify podcast.
All right. That will actually probably pull people in.
Yeah, explicit content. But anyway, we should call tonight. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, tonight, and have a good evening.
Yeah, thanks everybody.